Hi everybody, it's Alison and MetalBabe Cohen. So I thought I'd share something with you guys that's a little bit personal that I thought you might enjoy. So I have been collecting concert tickets, set list, memorabilia from every concert I go to from as long as I can remember. And I have 9 photo albums that are filled at this point from my concert tickets. So up until about a month ago, I had 5. And I decided I would take some time and go ahead and finish up. So I finished up just now. So I'm super excited to finish this project and thought I would share it with you. So what I've done here is just laid out 4 of the albums right now, and I'm going to show you a little close up and tell you about some highlights that I've opened it to, and then I'm going to pull out the other 5. So let's go to where it all started. These are my first concerts ever. So the first concert I ever went to in my entire life was Bon Jovi with Cinderella opening in St. Louis, 1987. So I always talk about, how I started my musical path, and that's where it all began. My next concert was Bon Jovi again. This was the one where Skid Row opened. I remember it was a rainy night, and with my friend Melanie and her dad, and I walked in and I saw Sebastian Bach up front screaming and like throwing this chain around. Being a collector, I've got them over time, some different Bon Jovi backstage passes. My third concert ever, I went to see Trixter open for Don Dokken, because I was a huge Trixter fan. First band I ever met in my whole life was Trixter. At this point, it's gone full circle now, and Steve Brown's wearing my MetalBabe shirt, and we've interviewed, and it's super, super cool, and I couldn't be more grateful. But I went to see Trixter, of course, open for Don Dokken at Mississippi Nights in St. Louis, and there's a review that they put in our St. Louis Post-Dispatch. My fourth concert, being the super big Trixter fan I went back to see Trixter again, open for the Scorpions. Of course, now I'm a big Scorpions fan, but at that point, I went for Trixter, and I actually even left after Trixter played, and I hung out on their bus with them, and I had them sign my shoe. So this is Mark Scott. He went by Gus, the drummer, and I had these shoes, these white Converse that I had all these bands sign. The man, the legend, Mr. Ronnie James Dio. This was at Pops, first time I ever met him. It was an amazing show. I was super in love with Dio, of course, and Strange Highways had just come out, and that's one of my top favorite albums of all time. And it was so awesome. And then after the show, he said, I want to meet everybody and come and I'll see you at the bus. And he did that. I've got my photo I can show you too. Reverend Horton Heat, always a fun show. The Queers, some friends took me to see that. And then you all know about the Ozfest story. So here's where it all started, 1997. Here's a headband we sold at some point. But yeah, I was an official vendor on Ozfest from 97 to 2000. Could not tell you who signed that. No clue. Let me know if you do. Pantera guitar pick, some random passes. So 97 was a short tour, but I did go on the next 3 years and did every single amphitheater. Quite an adventure, let me tell you what. Samantha 7 is a side project that CeCe DeVille put out for a while. So here's when they played Pops in Sauget, Illinois. There's a picture of me and CeCe. That was one of the many times I've chopped my hair, sitting on his lap with short hair. And then over here, I don't really remember this. I'm sure my boyfriend at the time, Cliff, took me here, but the Temptations. And then this is Skid Row, and this was at Pops, again, Sauget, Illinois. I've got a guitar pick here, set list. And let's see, moving on here, as you can see, I'm definitely a collector. Anytime you can get a Bon Jovi set list, it's a major score. I couldn't tell you how many I have from different shows. I'm guessing maybe somewhere between 10 to 12. So here's one from 2006. So we've already jumped from 1987 here with Bon Jovi, Trixter, the Scorpions. And then we were at 97 with Dio, Ozzy, 2000 with Poison, Samantha 7, and Skid Row. And then over here we are at 2006 with Bon Jovi, St. Louis. So that was actually, now that I'm thinking about it, that was when I was living here in LA and I was back visiting, and many of you know this, but I always like to take a friend to see Bon Jovi who's never seen them before, because it's always a super expensive ticket, but in my opinion, one of the greatest live rock and roll experiences you can ever have. So I've taken many friends to see Bon Jovi over the years. And this year I took my friend Stephanie, who's one of my closest friends, and she was living in St. Louis for a little while, and I worked it out where we could see Bon Jovi together. That was amazing. Back here in LA, I got taken to a Wasp show with Grant, my husband, and my friend Scotty, and Lizzie Borden opened. And at that point, I knew the name Lizzie Borden, I knew some hits, but that night I fell in love with Lizzie Borden. I was like, oh my God, it was amazing. The stage show, the music, it was catchy, it was fun, pumping your fists in the air. It was just one of those times where you just absolutely fall in love. As soon as Lizzie was over, I went downstairs to the merch booth. I met Lizzie for the first time. I remembered some of the songs I liked, and he told me what to go buy. And so the next day I bought some CDs. Now, you know, we've done interviews, I've seen him a ton of times, we know one another, so super happy to be a big Lizzie fan because of that show. And Armored Saint, here I went again to see Lizzie and Armored Saint. And who would have known, you know, not too many years later, that Jeff Duncan would be one of my greatest, biggest supporters, rocking my MetalBabe t-shirts all over the world. Just super grateful for that. More Poison. As you notice, you know I like to grab memorabilia. Here, again, I grabbed some confetti. And I thought I would show you this page. I'm sure a lot of you aren't familiar with this band. This is one of my top favorite bands, Diary of Dreams. In addition to rock and metal and 80s and punk, I love goth. And Diary of Dreams, this is the only time I've ever seen them. This was at the Key Club, July 6, 2006. I remember going to the show with my friend Melanie and Grant. And many, many years later, summer of 2019, Diary of Dreams was supposed to play Wacken. And I was so excited. Literally, of the 200 bands that played Wacken, Diary of Dreams was one of the 5 I was looking forward to the most. And unfortunately, it really didn't rain, but there was lightning. So as you can see, I'm rolling my eyes. Can't see, but I am. So while I was at Wacken, super excited all along to see Diary of Dreams, there was a thunder and lightning storm. And because of that, Diary of Dreams could not play. And then they announced they would play this year at Wacken, which again, I was super excited. But then Wacken and all of the 2020 concerts got canceled. So hopefully Diary of Dreams will be in my future. So here we went from 1987 to July of 2006. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a few more albums and pick up for you again. Hi everyone, so I'm back here. I've decided to pull out 3 more albums for you, and then I'll do the last 2. So we're starting back up in 2011. So this is a Bang Tango set list here on the left. Bang Tango is always a fun show. And this was a crazy weekend. I was just looking at this and remembering, I cannot believe I did all this. So on Friday, April 22nd, I remember going to Orange County by myself to the Glass House and meeting some friends out there and seeing Murder Dolls, which is Wednesday 13th's other band, and it was absolutely amazing. And it was like an all-ages sober club too, which is always an interesting experience, but super amazing. And then the next night, Grant and I drove to Palm Springs where they did the Big 4. So we saw Metallica, Slayer, Megadeth, and Anthrax in Palm Springs. Of course, another amazing show. And the next day, although I was so tired and so exhausted and shouldn't have gone out, I went and saw the Murder Dolls again at the Roxy. So that was one hell of a weekend. And then I saw Love Hate. This was back in the good old Club Vodka days, or Joe Sutton and I would book together, and we had a great community scene. It was so much fun. Here's a Motley Cruz show with Poison and New York Dolls. You can see I got a guitar pick. And I remember I was at that show with my friend Scotty, and after the show, we're just kind of walking around. We go by where the backstage area is, and a security guard recognizes me, and he says, "Oh, hey, Allison, do you want to come backstage? Who do you want to see?" And I'm sorry, I honestly had no idea who this was, but I'm forever grateful. And so I just pretended, you know, like I knew exactly who he was and what was happening. And I said, "Yeah, I'd like to get a Rikki Rockett's tour bus, please. Can you take me there?" So he said, "Sure." So he opened up the gate and he pulled me and Scotty in, walks up to Rikki Rockett's tour bus. He knocks on the door and he says, "Hey, Rikki, I have Alison here to see you." And Rikki looks at me and he's like, "Oh, hey, hi, come on in," gives me a hug. And we went up on the bus, we hung out, gave him a MetalBabe necklace that night, and took a photo of him wearing it, and it was super cool. Grant was mad, by the way, because he was on his way to pick me up, and yeah, I'm on Poison's tour bus when I was supposed to be going home. But you know, all for the love of rock and roll. Here's a Rush show I remember seeing at Gibson, which was always a great amphitheater. It's sad it's gone. It was a fun spot. Dream Theater opened. Long, fun show. Here is the first time I went to Wacken, 2015. And yes, even though it is spelled with a W, it is pronounced Wacken, almost like a vampire saying Wacken. So what got me to want to go to this one is Savatage and Trans-Siberian Orchestra made history and played at the exact same time on 2 different stages, and I would do it all over again in a second. One of the most amazing things I've ever done in my entire life. So thankful I got to be there, even though that is the year of the rain. Anybody familiar? There was literally RIP shoe piles everywhere. It was a mess, but lots of fun and so worth it. And while we were in Europe, we went to Prague afterwards just for fun, and literally as soon as we got there, I saw a telephone pole that had a flyer on it that said him was playing the Roxy, ironically, because here in LA, we have the Roxy. And I, of course, had to find tickets. And it's funny, too, because if you go back to here, this is July of 2015, at Wacken, it was freezing. Like, it was completely insane, like freezing cold, and we were sleeping in a tent, and it was an LA tent, and it was made for, you know, sunshine and rainbows. Okay, sunshine and stars. But it poured rain, so the tent was leaking, the ground was freezing. I literally thought we were gonna die and freeze to death the entire time, you know, 100,000 plus people. I only saw one American, and he was from LA, and he said that night that he hitchhiked to a hotel because he thought he was gonna freeze to death and couldn't handle it, and it was insane. So on the opposite spectrum, when we went to the hymn show, it was like a sauna. It was the hottest I have ever been in my entire life. I feel like I almost died, you know, almost froze to death and, you know, died of heat exhaustion, both in the same week here. Again, for the love of rock and roll. But yeah, with the hymn show, I call it a sauna show. You walked in, and then if the floor was slick when you walked in, you went down some stairs, and like the whole place was like steamy. They had a rule where once you leave, you couldn't come back, unfortunately. But you know, I walked in with Grant. He looks at me and he's like, "You're on your own." So you know, me, I'm like, "All right, I can do this." So I made my way to the front. I watched the entire set, didn't move because it was so crazy packed, held my hair in my hand, dripping wet the entire time, soaked. And Ville was so cool, he even went and he got water and he handed it out. But I stuck it out for the entire set, and then finally, when they went to encore, I couldn't breathe anymore, and I ran out of there gasping for air, got a water, walked in the bathroom, the mirrors were fogged up, you know, like a sauna. It was insane. Yeah, Grant told me he had made it 3 songs, and I met him at a bar after. But literally the whole time people were running out of there because it was so crazy hot. And then shortly after we got back from Europe, there's the Cat House Live at Irvine Meadows, and that's where I set up a MetalBabe booth, and they had all the 80s bands playing. It was super fun. I wish we could do more of those. More Scorpions. And then here is Buckcherry. Buckcherry is one of my longtime favorite bands. This show is from February 18th, 2016 at the Canyon Club. And when I really first started working with music in 1997, when I got an internship with a High Frequency based out of North Carolina, they had me work with Buck Cherry. And so I was their St. Louis girl. So I got to see them every time they went to St. Louis. I'd put posters all over town. I had cassette singles. I had giant posters. I would go on their tour bus and interview them. I'd poster the venues. So that was really cool. I was still a big fan. And speaking of some of my favorite bands, Tesla is in my top 5. Tesla, I think, is one of the most underrated bands that there is. I've turned so many people onto Tesla who are just like, oh my gosh, like, you know, they got popular for a cover song, which is kind of ridiculous, and people know them for the big ballad, but, you know, it's kind of unfortunate because they're literally one of the best bands in the world. They never quit putting out music. They are not afraid to play their new music, and they always put on an amazing live show. They always hang out with their fans. They're always super cool. So I will keep seeing Tesla and keep buying Tesla music forever. So let's see, we just went through 2011 all the way through March of 2016. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the last 2 albums and we will get up to the present day. Thank you for watching. So here we are with the last 2 albums. I have to tell you, it's been so difficult for me to just choose 2 or 3 pages in each album. So now that we're down to 2, I'm going to choose a couple more. I'll just do a little flip for you. So anybody who's been paying attention knows I am a die-hard Wednesday 13 fan. I actually first found them around 2004 when my friend Devlin and I went to the Whiskey to see the Peppermint Crepes. And he tells me that you're going to love Wednesday 13 at least as much, if not more, as you love the Peppermint Crepes. And he was right. I absolutely fell in love with Wednesday 13. I've seen them many times. I've seen them in Florida for my birthday a few years ago. I went all the way to London with my friend Jazz to see them do the Frankenstein Drag Queen from Planet 13 and Wednesday 13 shows back to back. I've seen them tons of times, always great. Even got a Wednesday 13 tattoo, which many of you may have seen in my tattoo video I did with Katie. This is a Prophets of Addiction set list. Leslie's a longtime friend of mine and always love seeing them live. So once everything gets back to normal, we'll be bringing them back out here again, probably at the Viper Room. So these are from October of 2018. And let's just do a little flip here for a second. And we've got Vain. I didn't actually get into Vain until about 1998. And I got into them because a friend gave me the No Respect cassette. And at that point, I just absolutely fell in love. 1000 Degrees is one of my top favorite songs ever. So I guess that's about over 20 years now I've been a diehard fan. So at least I'm catching up. But one of my favorite bands. And let's just take a sneak peek what we have here. Oh, Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Again, you all know that I'm the biggest Savatage fan in the world. So here's the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. This was just December of 2018. And then this was a really fun show. This was when Vince Neil played the Saban Theater. And I was up front with my friend Kelly, and it was like Vince Neil was like singing to us all night. He literally took my hand like 3 different times, sang right to me. At one point, he gave me the microphone. You know, you tell my, childhood self that would have happened someday, I would have never believed it. And then here, I get the set list. I get a ton of guitar picks. I mean, definitely an amazing night. And many of you also know my lifelong dream of meeting John Bon Jovi finally came true this January when Kat and I went on the Runaway Tour. And to top it off, I got to shake his hand when he left the stage, which is probably my favorite part of the whole weekend. And I did get the set list from the stage that night too. So you can see for those diehard fans, this is amazing because, I'm one of those people, I don't really like the hits. I want to hear the obscure and the B-sides, and this was just such a great set list, so amazing. And it was storyteller style, so in between each of these sets where the lines are, he would answer some questions. So very amazing, up close and personal. Only about 500 people were there. Another one I got into kind of late. It's funny because I have friends, who got into this in the 90s. But in the 90s, I was too stuck in the 80s, because in the 80s, I wasn't old enough to enjoy the 80s. So I feel like I've been playing catch up for my whole life. So in the 90s, I was listening to Motley Crue and Bon Jovi and Poison, because I was too young to listen to all that, you know, when it was first coming out. So I'm a late bloomer to find Orgy, but I am, again, a diehard. I think since I newly fell in love with them about 2 years ago, I've seen them at least 3 times. So this was at the Vampire Ball, one of the only shows I've seen this year. Kind of a crazy 2020. I don't know how long my book's gonna stay empty. There was the Metal Hall of Fame, which I went to show my support, and I was a proud sponsor. The Runaway Tour, Orgy, and Pretty Boy Floyd. So 4 shows in 2020. So need to end it on a positive here, even though there's only 4 shows in 2020. I guess I've been to hundreds and hundreds, right? So I'm glad to share a few of these with you. I may decide to show more. Just randomly, here's a show Michelle Nugent took me to, celebrating David Bowie. We had so much fun. This was Santa Cruz. So we're looking at March of 2018. More Bon Jovi. This was one at T-Mobile Arena, and I took my friend Jessica. As mentioned, I always like to take a friend for the first time. So we celebrated St. Patrick's Day there with our other friend Leah. And yes, as you can see, I got the set list. Let's see what's next. It's a surprise for all of us. So let's see, I'll show you a quick look here and then I'll wrap up. So here's the Metal Jam. I always like to be a sponsor and support their cause. Conquest, my friends from St. Louis. That was actually cool because I was in St. Louis. This is at Pops. I hadn't got to see them play Pops in so long. And that's like they say, they own that place. I wish I could go there more. That's their bar. Rainbow parties are always fun. I look forward to doing that again. I guess next one probably won't be till April. I went here, I think, to see Davey's Suicide. And let's see, Joan Jett. Oh, and Tesla was here. They're the opening band. That was the best part of that one. Joan Jett, Styx, and Tesla. Always a great show. Hammerfall. I think that was Edge of Paradise opened for that, I'm pretty sure. And LA Guns. Long time LA Guns fan. Super grateful. Tracy is now a supporter of MetalBabe Mayhem. But yeah, I've been listening to them since the beginning. Seen them tons and tons of times. So thank you, everybody, for listening and watching and supporting. I'm happy to share a little bit of my rock and roll life with you all. After I put together my albums, I remembered that I had a bunch of guitar picks that I should put in there. So I grabbed them so I could show you guys, and then I'm going to file them in after I do the video. So here we go. I did put them in order to show you. So we've got Ace Von Johnson, Bang Tango, several from Jeff Duncan and Armored Saint. We've got Sebastian Bach, Brittany Fox, Bullet Boys, Crash Kelly, a ton from Gilby Clarke, Crewfest, Dokken, Dope, Jackal, King's X, Lillian Axe, a few from Lit Soul, quite a few from Lizzie Borden, London After Midnight, Bret Michaels, a couple from Billy Sheehan and Mr. Big. Here's Ted Poley from the Monsters of Rock cruise that I went on, and a couple from the Randy Rhoads Remembered and Bonzo Bash when I worked on that with Joe Sutton. Reverend Horton Heat, Michael T. Ross from when he was at the Rock Vault, David Schenkel, Phil Soussan, Steel Panther, Steve Stevens, a few from Stonebreed, and I've got several here from Y&T, a ton from Trans-Siberian Orchestra since I see them every time they play, every Christmas. And the middle one that's white I actually got from Paul O'Neill himself, the one and only time I met him in 2015 when Savatage and TSO both played. He gave me that. And these last ones I don't remember or know what they are, so if you guys have any idea on these last 4, let me know.